Welcome to AFL Access. My name is Joel, and today I'll be continuing the 2019 season reviews, coming all the way from Brooklyn, New York. But this is the last day I'm staying here, so by the time this is out, I'll be back in Australia. Anyway, that's not the point. Today, I will be doing a season review of the tumultuous, terribly depressing season that was for the Adelaide Crows. So, with what's happened in the past week or so, the tone of this review was going to shift pretty rapidly. Like, first off, I was going to do a more comedic kind of review, but unfortunately when Tex Walker stepped down as captain, I got pretty pissed off. I honestly thought Tex had been thrown under the bus for a lot of bad decisions that weren't his control. I mean, people point to the leaver thing, but what else are you supposed to do when a player leaves, especially after making a grand final? Anyway, that's not the point. And in the past, as of recording, probably the past 12 hours, Don Pike has stepped down as coach of the Adelaide Crows. In my opinion, I think it's the right thing to do because I felt like we weren't going to go anywhere. Would just be kicking the can down the road for as long as we had him on as coach. Alright, so Adelaide's season was, at least in the win-loss record, didn't look too bad. 10-12, which is not great, but finishing 11th overall, again with a 10-12 record's pretty astounding, especially with how the season has been going. Had a percentage of 100.9, so just over dead even, and that seems about right. It has been a tumultuous season, a lot of very confusing a lot of confusion and uncertainty with the Crows lineup. Just a game plan that seems to have stagnated and got absolutely exposed on multiple occasions, and just frustrating executive decision making. Positive. The Crows defense I honestly thought was really good. Problem is, Talia had a outstanding year. He was selected for an All-Australian. He was in the All-Australian squad, but didn't make it to the final cut, which I get. But he has been an outstanding defender, and I think Jake Kelly had also another great defensive year. Luke Brown, quiet, but that's his quietly good season, but that's pretty much his MO for the entire year, or the entire season, his entire career. And as much as Carl Hardigan is a terrible field kick, I think he's a good one-on-one big body defender that we don't really have to take on the number 2 forward in each team. The forward line, I feel Tex actually had a pretty good season. He finished 9th in the Coleman, something that is really neglected, just, dump on Tex forever and ever and ever. But he finished 9th in the Coleman standing. I think in the last couple games had an outstanding last about 4 or 5 games, kicking 5 against the Dogs, in which a game we were never in, but he still played like we were in it. Players like Lockie Murphy look to step in and fill the void that will be left by Eddie Betts if he decides to leave, or at the very Darcy Fogarty looked to be a superstar in the games that he played, which a lot of people were baffled when he wasn't playing the entire season. Again, that's the Crow selection for you, and we'll get to that mess in a moment. But yeah, Darcy Fogarty kicked 5 in his first game against the Eagles, kicked 3 against the Pies, didn't kick any against the Dogs, but then again, he's still a young player, and if he gets a full season next year, going to be a force up for another big gun, tall forward for the Crows. All right. And now for the part that you've all been waiting for, the negatives. Well, where do we begin? All right. So, midfield. The Crouch brothers, they get a ton of disposals. Too bad, like, a quarter of those disposals are, like, effective in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, they are pretty good stat patterns, so fantasy players probably love them, but other than that, they don't appear to contribute all that much. Well, at least in my opinion. Rory Sloan, who... I love Rory Sloan. He is a fantastic player. He's a warrior. Had a bad season. Now, as a Crows fan, what I've noticed is that even in a bad game, Rory Sloan usually has a pretty good game. He works doggedly. But this year, I don't know how much it has to do with personal life issues, but this year, he had noticeably bad games. Like, he just couldn't do anything to work his way into the game, or at least try and impact it. The midfield could not hit a target in the forward 50. Doesn't matter how quickly we got the ball back. Couldn't hit a target. Most of the time, they kick it into a defender who is 5 meters in front of the forward, who's leading for a mark, or they kick it 2 meters in front of them after the forward's already made a massive sprint to the ball. So essentially, with no efficiency going forward, Adelaide really struggled to just do anything that you would know for the Crows in the past couple of years. Forward line has been a bit iffy. For some reason, we keep chopping and changing players. Jenkins got dropped for a couple of weeks. He returned. He actually played pretty well. I thought 4 goals against Richmond before he did that scary knee sprain, knee hyperextension, which was, very scary, but, he was playing pretty well, all things considered, but then inexplicably they drop him again after he comes back from injury. I should have mentioned with the midfield, kind of threw the defense under the bus, which again I thought was really good this year. But when the midfield doesn't get the ball or doesn't keep the ball and get it to the forwards and keep it scoring, if it goes back the other way, the defense starts to get tired, and sometimes that got completely exposed. Just letting teams run through the middle of the ground. Like, if you watched that blowout in the showdown, you would just see Port players just strolling through, no way or shape or form impeded by the Crows. So realistically, the fact that we even reached 10 and 12 and beat teams like GWS and Richmond, not sure how that happened. I feel our revolving carousel of players in and out of the side, Gibbs, Greenwood, Keith, and all those kind of players did not contribute to any stability within the team. As much as people lambast the Crows for continuously dropping Gibbs, when he played, didn't do shit. Point blank, as someone who watched pretty much all the games, I can't really think of a great performance by Gibbs. Last year, I could definitely see that, but this year, no, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Greenwood, again, don't know what happened, had a couple good moments, but other than that, he didn't play that well this season. Keith, again, he was a really good defender, good intercept mark since Duday went down with a knee injury, and the inconsistent lineup and just swapping people out was just ridiculous, especially the players I don't think deserved it, like Lockie Murphy shouldn't have been dropped for that last game. Eddie probably should have been dropped for a couple games because he just doesn't have the gas tank anymore. And even though he may be leaving the Crows, and I love Eddie Betts, I think it's probably for the best, because at least looking at the youth we've got, at a state level, they look very promising. If there's one thing I think Adelaide needs to do going forward, well, two things actually, and both can be summed up in 3 words. First, play the youth. Like, that was one of the most infuriating things about this year. We got 2 first-round draft picks, Ned McHenry and Chase Jones. They should have been playing most of the year. Same with Fogg, same with most of our young core, because they're going to be here. Our list is aging, and it's aging like spoilt milk. Put Rob in, finally, thank God for that. But you need to play more of the youth, because this isn't going to be around forever. And finally, what they need to do, blow it up. This might be controversial, but it already looks like it's starting to happen. Trade bets. As much as I fucking hate to say it, trade Jenkins. I don't want to, but if they're going to have takers and they're going to throw young players and draft picks, I might, unlike some of the other guys, like Justin Orion on the channel, I'm pretty big into believing that the draft is the best way to build a team, and then when you find complements for that team, you start to add. But yeah, as much as I love JJ, and I honestly want him to keep him, but if they're gonna go full rebuild, gotta trade Jenkins. Also in the draft, get a good outside midfielder who can also pinpoint pass, or trade for one, preferably a young one, because that was the biggest issue this year. One of the biggest issues, we just did not play the kids. As much as I love Richard Douglas and Andy Otten, probably shouldn't have played those last couple games. You could have played Chase, you could have played anyone. Just like, play the youth, for the love of God. Anyway, if I were to give the Crows season rating out of 10, it would be a solid 2. Grand final expectations pretty much dead in the water by the last third of the season. Never really looked as good as they had been. Now they're out without a coach. Their co-captain has stepped down, and it looks like this might be the beginning of the dark times. Don't see us making, well, or at least our window for the time being for a premiership has been shut on our fingers. If you enjoyed this depressing rant from a salty Crow supporter, please subscribe to the AFL Access channel, where you'll see more of me be salty and depressing on the channel. If you want to click subscribe and ring the bell to stay notified of all new videos, because we're doing a season review for all 18 clubs, and the next couple come up look pretty good before we get into the finals teams. If you want to discuss football with any of the guys on the channel, click the link in the description to join our Discord, and then you can start chatting away with us. This has been your AFL Access.
Now I asked around, and locals assured me that this is indeed a football game. What a huge field if you have a look. Anyway.